Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Physiology Secrets podcast. We've kicked Tyler out, just got Nick today. We're going to talk all things at-home strength training. Before we do, we had a question come through from Ron Addison, who has been a long-time client of ours. He has said, just for the record, I do strength training, do a lot of weights and squats on a Monday and endurance every Thursday. For the last 4 weeks or so, every time I get on my bike, I'm stiff and sore and have no energy. I struggle to keep up with riders that I normally keep up with easily. My guess is I'm not recovering from the weight training. I have just put a hold on the weight training for 4 weeks so I can monitor the difference. Please comment if you can. So he does some strength training, which has only been for the last 4 weeks.
By the sounds of it.
And he's still stiff. Sorry, by the time he gets to his ride on a Thursday, so 3 days later, and he's struggling to keep up, and he's got low energy levels. Delayed onset muscle soreness, 4 weeks isn't that much time. Assuming it is 4 weeks, we've interpreted that correctly. Please comment if different, Ron. But 4 weeks, I reckon I'd get DOMs for probably about that period, probably 4 or 5 if you're doing reasonably heavy sort of weights and you're not used to it.
Depends on how you're cycling around with your training as well. Like most of the initial fatigue should be gone probably within 48 hours, but then if he's riding on the back of that, like if he's going gym, ride, and there's no real, like there's always something happening, it's going to accumulate and he's still going to be sore.
I remember whenever I take a massive break from gym and the first session back, you don't even lift heavy, but you are so sore. I'm so sore for probably at least half a week, probably closer to a full week. Like if you do it, you're just not used to it and you go and do it. It's just a completely different stimulus.
It's just your body going into damage control. You've all of a sudden just come back in and just done something completely different, and it's just going, what is this again?
Yeah.
Same with training. Like you haven't done VO2 intervals for 6 months, and you do them for the first time. The first session's always a struggle.
Yeah. And on this, it says he does it on a Monday, so one time a week. Probably take a little bit longer to get to the point where you're not getting as much DOMs.
Yeah.
You're recovering a little bit better. So my advice to you, Ron, would really just to be to stick at it. Yeah. It's a training stimulus. It's extra training. It's different. It's a different type. It is going to cause fatigue, but that's good. Like literally, you need to be fatigued to then recover to get the super compensation.
Yeah.
So, my advice would be to stick at it, and it will get better. If you've done 4 weeks, it'll be a lot better by week 6, 7, 8. You'll start to get less sore. You'll recover more quickly. Your body will adapt to what it's doing. But on the back of that, if it's really crucial that you want to stick with the group, then again be aware that within 2 to 4 weeks you'll be fine. But if you stop, but if you do stop like you're suggesting here, putting it on hold for 4 weeks, it's just going to happen all again.
It's just going to happen again.
You're going to get sore for 4 weeks, and it takes by week 5 or 6 or 7, you're back to normal. So it's just like any training, consistency is king. You will adapt really quickly, but yes, you are going to be sore for the first initial period, but give it a little bit more time, 5, 6, 7 weeks, and you will get back to normal. In terms of energy levels,
probably just like if he's adding it in, it's extra bit of training. Like with any overall, if we look at training volume overall, you lift the volume. Of course, you're probably going to be a bit flat for the first couple of weeks. Handling that extra amount of training, extra type of session potentially.
And if you're a bit stiff and sore, like that's kind of hand in hand with energy in the sense that like it's psychological. You can't push as hard because your legs hurt, and it's sort of like not a placebo, but that
you're almost pre-framing yourself to feel a bit negative. You wake up in the morning, you're like, I got to get on the bike, but I'm a bit sore.
Yeah,
not going to work as hard because I'm trying to like sort of ride with him myself.
Yeah,
something maybe as well. Like I don't know if he's riding on the weekends, but doing a hard strength session on a Monday after a long ride Sunday. I don't know if that's his exact plan at the moment. Probably not the best idea either. So maybe considering moving that session within the week to then balance out his week a bit might also ease a little bit of it as well.
Yeah, so he's saying weights on Monday and then endurance on Thursday. So there's a bit of a break, but I'd say again initially that's still going to be hard going, but then as you get a few more weeks in, you'll recover a little bit better. So the only other thing I was going to say, so don't worry about like your fitness. If you're not reducing your aerobic volume, it's not affecting it. You're fine. It's just that you've included a different stress. And that is going to temporarily affect your performance. If you've replaced an endurance set with strength, then you probably could have lost a little bit of fitness. So if all else is the same, then just stick at it and you'll be right, mate. And so you won't be doing a whole lot of gym strength training right now, which leads us straight into the podcast topic, is what can we do at home as endurance athletes to do some strength? Now, obviously, that some people are really fortunate they have a home gym, or they have some modified equipment, or like just some equipment like bands or just, barbells, bench, maybe a bench press, one or two machines if they're lucky, and then some have absolutely nothing. So I'm pretty much going to jump straight over to you, Nick. Maybe if they've got nothing,
which is going to be
a large
chunk of people, particularly as well, trying to get equipment at the moment is a struggle.
Yeah. So what's the goal, and then what can they do to achieve that goal?
The goal is primarily movement based. Give it like if we take the example of your typical runner who hasn't done a lot of strength in the first place, definitely wouldn't be recommending going out and trying to buy a whole bunch of equipment that you've never used. And it doesn't have to be a fancy program type thing. And
we're not bodybuilders, we don't want to get huge.
And it also at the same time you might see some stuff on social media. Like we watched a video earlier of a guy jumping with a barbell across his back onto a box onto a BOSU, but like it doesn't have to.
Let's post that link.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be complex, silly stuff. Just the simple stuff really does work. And for the majority of people, it's just if you can learn the movement, you're going to get better coordination of your body as a result. So just learning how to squat correctly without any other equipment or things, resistance, whatever. If you can learn how to squat just by yourself, internally you're going to develop that better motor control, understand your movement, a bit more coordination. That is automatically going to help you when you go back out and you're able to run and train and things like that as well. So simple works, and you can get away with a lot of it without using any equipment. Some of the guys who are more advanced who might have already been at a gym and now have been a bit restricted, maybe a little bit different. But if we're talking, if you've got no equipment at all and you haven't really done much in the gym, or you've done a bit in the gym but it's not been consistent, like Ron's case, you might have only been doing a short period of time, strip it right back and just focus on, all right, let's just learn some of the technique of our key movement skills, which you can get into in a bit of a sec, but that's going to do a lot more for you than trying to go right up the other end. 0 to 100 never works.
I think there's lots that you can do, and I reckon from a beginner standpoint, which is for a lot of people listening, probably never seriously done strength.
Yeah.
Then you don't really need equipment. You probably don't even want equipment. Maybe some band stuff, but you don't want to be doing heavy squats because one, the technique's going to be rubbish and you're going to increase injury. But you're right, you're going to have delayed onset muscle soreness for a long time if you're doing it. So it will be very disruptive to your endurance training initially. So maybe let's start off with the beginner. They've never done it before. They're very early. The goal really is the neural transmissions, really. Like you get 30% stronger by looking at a bar if you lift it correctly. Do you know what I mean? Like you don't actually have to lift heavy stuff just to get the motor patterns right. So what's something that, let's assume no injuries, and let's say we're reasonably normal, the type of people we get. What body weight exercises can they do? Let's talk about being time efficient. Let's get 20, 30 minutes for the session maximum. No equipment whatsoever, but they've never done strength training before. So what do you reckon?
I always just look at it I always break it down into movements primarily and go, what are our big key compound movements? So multi-joint, as much work in bang for buck as you can. So some sort of squat variation. So you can just do a bodyweight squat, or if you haven't squat before, just sit on a chair, get yourself in a nice feet flat on the floor and basically just stand up from the chair. That's a good starting point. And solidify that technique from the beginning, and then you can take the chair away and slowly work into that. So some sort of squat, some sort of then opposite to that, because the squat's obviously very sort of quad, front of your body, anterior dominant. So something that's going to do more your glutes and your hamstrings. So whether that's a variation of like a Romanian deadlift type hinge movement, which we can go into a bit, or even something like a glute bridge is a good start. It's simple. It's going to target your glutes. It's going to target your hamstrings a bit. Relatively easy to do. Ideally, as best you can, some sort of upper body push and pull. So push would be like a push-up is a good starting point. Pull would be like you can wrap a towel around if you've got a pole or a set of stairs in your house, you can wrap it around the end of the stairs and sort of use that as a pulling motion to work on more your back. So we're just trying to hit as much of our body as we can. So again, shoulders, chest, legs, every part, but keeping it really simple. So we're just hitting 4 key movements rather than, all right, I'm just going to go in and try and do squats today. It's all right, well, I'm trying to do a lower body push, so that's going to work my quads. Like we think about pedal stroke on the bike, for example, or I'm going to be working on an upper body pull, which is more going to be related to like a swimming and the catching the water and pulling through the water. Finishing that with maybe something to do with in and around your torso from a core perspective. However you want to throw that around, but in terms of being able to then transfer from, all right, I'm generating some force in my legs, I want to transfer that to my upper body, or in the swim particularly, we want to transfer force from our upper body to our lower body. So that chain in the middle, that's the key part to all of this. Working on some sort of core strength or torso strength is going to be useful as well. So that's how I generally map out, really basically look at key movements first, and then we can get into the ins and outs of, all right, exercises and what might be more useful than others, how do you progress them. But I think of movement first is the easy way to do it.
So the summary for that is really, in a best case scenario, probably 7 exercises, best case, and that's a lower body push and pull, so a squat or a lunge or off a chair, standing up off a chair, versus the opposite movement, which could be a glute bridge, etc. We'll post a couple of links of some examples of these so you get an idea. And then it's the same for the upper body. We've got a horizontal push and pull. And then obviously you can do a vertical push and pull if you can. Now,
probably not as applicable for endurance because we don't do anything really.
I'm thinking lats on the way down.
The only overhead would be probably swim, but and maybe in this circumstance it's more like if you've got access to maybe a chin up bar or a tree or something, you could do chin ups on, or pull ups on. That's probably the only thing.
Tyler's got lots of trees he's saying.
But typically with like when you're able to swim, and obviously pull shut at the moment, things like that's a bit tricky, but when you're able to swim, you're probably going to get a lot of that action just by swimming anyway. So any pushing overhead,
I agree
it's not specific.
Just to balance it out. But again, that's the best case.
Horizontal is probably a little bit safer as well.
And
that's still going to get that sort of balancing effect. Whereas the overhead stuff probably not as applicable for endurance athletes. I've been mostly focusing, like I said, on lower body push pull first, upper body is secondary, and then the core stuff is probably somewhere in between.
Core is good. Let's just keep it simple, planking or something like that.
Plank, side plank. What do we want to do?
Try to keep it specific. So if you think about swimming, then you sort of want to be in that plane of motion. You don't want to be doing fancy outside. You can, but like I'm thinking from a specificity standpoint, something cool.
Time trial position on the bike's the easy one. It's like, I'm not going to do any sort of fancy, crazy planks and like push-ups into rows and stuff. It's like I'm going to put my arms down like this. I'm going to stay in a pretty sort of flat position and I'm going to try and hold it. Maybe you do some sort of leg movement off that because that replicates the bike. But even then, it's just like, what's the focus? The focus is core stability, trunk stability. Staying in one line and nice and stable doesn't have to be super complicated. Keep it pretty simple.
Cool. And then progressing from that, let's say it's the same person. They're still a beginner or very new to strength training, but they do have equipment, like just some. They've got bands, they've got light dumbbells, they've got maybe like a light kettlebell, that sort of stuff. Would you do anything different? So they're still the same person, but now I'm new to it, but I've got some equipment. Should they use that equipment? If so, how would they use it, and what are the pros and cons of that versus what we just said before with squat versus all the rest?
It becomes a bit individualised. Like if we're still talking that example of pretty much starting from scratch, I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't even bother touching the equipment just yet. Start from the beginning and work your way up. Once you've had a bit of experience, like if you've gone through and done 6-10 weeks of
I'm
training,
getting bored, it's been 6 weeks.
You get a bit bored, it's getting a bit easy, things like that, then you can start to add in some of that equipment. So things like you can start doing, instead of just a squat with just your body weight, you can essentially, like most people are going to hold their hands in this position when they do it anyway to counterbalance themselves. Some people actually find if you hold a kettlebell, a dumbbell, you see on social media, people are holding like cookbooks and stuff like that out in front of them, sort of here in what we call a goblet position. Really useful because that'll help potentially counterbalance you, so stop you from tipping over anyway, but it adds a bit of weight, so now you're carrying a bit more weight on the way up. Do the same for like your glute bridge. Just hold the kettlebell and dumbbell across your hips. You might then progress either of those exercises to a single leg exercise. Don't have to use equipment, but it is harder. So a split squat or a lunge for the squats, or you might go to like a single leg glute bridge for that one there as well. So that can also add a bit of difficulty or challenge to the exercise. Things like bands are an interesting one. Like if we're looking at a push-up example, you could chuck your feet up on something to make it harder. You could put your hands up on an elevated surface to make it easier. Wrap a resistance band around your shoulders and push against that. I can guarantee it's going to be harder than just doing a normal push-up. So some of those things can come into it. You see a lot the mini bands, which have their purpose, but I mean, you can only do so many sort of lateral side steps with the mini band before your glutes just start screaming at you, and it's a bit excessive. I still think like it really depends. I mean, we're not really changing we're not changing the principle. So
Exactly.
if it's something that's going to then progress and gradually progress what you're doing already, and it's going to be useful and beneficial, great. Something like the rowing example I used before with like you wrap a towel around a pole. If you've got some resistance band, like the long stretchy resistance bands that you can wrap around instead, and that's going to be harder to pull back.
Mm-hmm.
Than just pulling yourself up with a towel, then yeah, great, progress the exercise. If it's going to provide you the same stimulus, do we really need it? Yes or no?
Yeah. I mean, so really, it's exactly what I was going to say. It's the same. The foundation is the same. Whether you got equipment or you don't, you're still trying to do, unless you've got a significant injury that you need to isolate a muscle group, you're just doing your compound lifts, your horizontal push-pull, but lower body up.
Yep.
Really, it's really as
You
simple.
can change tempo, you can change,
possibly
you can just do your squats slower. That's going to be harder than doing it just really fast up and down. But like any of that type of thing, you can definitely alter. There's a number of different variations of the exercises that are going to make it more difficult naturally.
Yeah.
All the bits of equipment are just there to then, all right, if we need to continue to progress it or we want to progress in a different way for variety purposes, then we can start looking at it.
Yeah, and then when you go into the best case scenario, we've got a home gym, we've got access to everything that you need. Again, the principles do not change; it's still exactly the same. But hey, now we can chuck a bar on our back or on the front. If you're competent with the movements, you can actually do a lat pull down and get really specific there.
Start talking
things
about
like that.
using a bar to maybe deadlift, or if you've got a hex bar, a trap bar, a little bit sort of safe on the back. All that we can load it up a bit more. So now we're probably talking towards the intermediate to advanced end of the spectrum that would be benefiting mostly from that, being able to load it up more. And then it also depends on your goals. I mean, it's the type of thing that do we really need to be doing some really that heavy stuff? I'm sure we'll go into it in a sec. But if you're a marathon runner, you want to be like, you don't want to obviously putting on too much size and that DOMS that we were talking about with Ron. So, but a track cyclist, we're gonna have to get as big as we can in the quads, and heavy weights are going to do that. So. That's where it does start to change based on what you need as well. So it might be good to have some of that equipment if you're confident, but you've got to then use it in the right way.
Yeah, so we'll come to that in like 2 seconds. So just in summary, beginners, whether you have equipment or not is irrelevant, really. You just need to do the movements.
Yep.
Right? A lower body push and pull, squat and a deadlift. If you've got that, but whatever, anything like that. And then same with the upper body. So keep it really simple. And some core. Like, that's it. Five exercises. 15 minutes you're done. Or reps and sets maybe, or what do you think?
Well, again, if you haven't done anything, I mean, you're going to get any benefit by doing anything. Like if you do it for the first time, any stimulus is really going to give you a positive return. Then it more becomes about what are we trying to target. If we're not using much equipment, I doubt any sort of traditional, like if you're looking at like sets of 10 that would be typical hypertrophy muscle building type stuff, if you've got no equipment, there's going to be a diminishing return on it. You're not going to keep putting on muscular size by just squatting your own body weight, unless of course you are now getting heavier. That's increasing the weight, but it's going to be unlikely. So it's the type of thing that, I mean, you probably can't go too wrong in the early stages. I probably just wouldn't be going, maybe in Ron's case with our bit of information, the DOMS thing may be coming, like if you're going and trying to do sets of 20 or 25 squats, you're doing that 3 times and you're only having 30 seconds recovery between, you're going to be fatigued.
Yeah.
If you're doing things like 3 sets of 10 to begin with and give yourself a minute and a half recovery in between to start with, is going to be enough to, all right, I'm going to be nice and fresh so I can get through the movement correctly and nail my technique to get that really good nervous system stimulus. But I'm not going to be too sore after it as well.
All right, so as a rough guide, guys, I'd be saying something along the lines of, reps of about 10 to 20 body weight sort of stuff with, say, 90 odd seconds recovery. And maybe 3 sets, so 3 sets of say 10, 15, 20. 20 is the high end, with about 90 seconds recovery.
Absolute max. So probably even shorter, like 8 to 15
8
sort
to 15.
Of range. There's no real need to go in.
And if that's really easy, then you just do the one-legged alternatives. So you do a lunge instead of a squat, for example. All right, we'll move on. So let's just talk about the more advanced, whether an advanced strength trainer or just an athlete who is reasonably fit and I can squat all day long and I don't feel anything, so to speak. The goal shifts a little bit from, not if they've got some experience, it shifts from just movement patterns and the neuromuscular stuff to more so performance benefit, or at least maintenance, because they can't go to the gym now and all that sort of stuff. Without using any equipment, I'm thinking straight away, like I'm thinking, all right, intent to lift, you're right?
Yep.
Jumping onto a box, or if you've got one, like, if you can go outside, just find a step. Like, in my apartment, I've got steps. I just jump up the steps. It takes me about 6 jumps to get to the top of the steps. Are you in that? So are you in the frame of thinking where it's similar activities, but just doing it as fast and as hard as you can, or do you?
Yeah, pretty much. Even probably one step before things like the box jumps and that. Like you got to be careful from that perspective because compared to like you, I guess you're an athlete who might jump and land quite a lot. Endurance sports, we don't really jump and land. Yes, like the running motion's quite plyometric as it is, but you're not really jumping as high as you can or as hard as you can and then having to absorb all that impact. So something like that could actually then put you at a higher risk to begin with. But it's the type of thing that you take your squat, for example, and if you're now at the point where you've got a bar on your back, or even if you've got a kettlebell or a dumbbell, that's all you've got to use, cookbooks, whatever, instead of doing that movement, just like really continuous pace. So just slow and control on the way down, maybe pause and then slow and control on the way up. It's now pretty controlled on the way down, but I'm coming up real fast.
Yes.
I'm thinking about moving as quickly as I can in that upward motion. I always think about like if you like without coming off the ground, but you think about you squat down and then you're trying to get off the ground essentially. Like if you've got a heavy bar on your back, it's probably going to restrict you, but you're trying to push it as hard as you can.
You are going as hard as you can. It might be slow because you've got a whole lot of weight on your back, but you are trying to stand up as fast as you can.
Yeah, and so and like even then, same with like your glute bridge, for example. You explode up through your hips, so you push your hips up as hard as you can, and then just nice and slow and controlled on the way down.
Push up exactly the same, slow on the way down, and then push up as hard as you can or as fast as you can.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think to get it really simple, if you're confident in doing the movement without hurting yourself, you don't have to add weight necessarily. You just have to control on the way down and then really explode on the up phase. So just explode up, explode, push forward, so on and so forth.
So what we call it, that intent to lift.
Yeah,
like you want to be trying to push things as hard and as fast as you can. Think of that internally. Like I'm going to I was thinking about like move the floor. Like if you think about pushing the ground, it's like I'm going to push the ground down. We know it's not going to move, but if you're in that mindset, you're going to push into the floor a lot harder and a lot more forcefully.
Yeah, awesome. And in terms of rep sets and recovery, obviously with this, the intent to lift, the freshness is really, really important. Just roll through some basic sets and reps and how you know if you're doing too much or too little because, intent to lift must be pretty high.
It obviously depends on what type of weight you're lifting. Like if you're not lifting too much in terms of actual load, so you only got a pretty sort of light weight or you still do body weight, whatever it is, you probably get away with a few more, but we're now starting to talk 8 reps or really less.
Yes.
I mean, there's no sort of
must be
bottom
fresh.
into it, but
must be fresh.
But you got to be fresh. You're not doing massive amounts of it. It's really high quality set. Then we get plenty of recovery. So like as far as sort of 2-3 minute recovery just to completely sort of freshen up for the next one. And again, probably only sort of like maybe 2 to maybe 4 sets of it. Again, depending on what you're doing. If you're doing 4 reps in a set, you might get away with 4 sets. If you're doing 8 reps in a set, you might only get away with 2 or 3 because it's going to be slightly different in terms of managing that load and being able to repeat that with quality across each of the sets in the session. And then also thinking about the other exercises you then have to do as well. So we drop the amount of total work we're doing, rest goes up, almost kind of similar to what we do if you're looking at
and intensity goes up.
The stuff we talked about before is almost like your tempo threshold stuff. It's that longer effort, short, a little bit shorter recovery. Now we're sort of talking about top end quality.
Yeah, we've increased the intensity so we can reduce your number of efforts, and it's going to be the same.
And we're going to give you a bit of recovery in between. It's going to balance itself out. So that's where we get that really effective stimulus there.
Yeah, good. No, I think that covers it really well. The last thing I want to talk about before we sort of wrap up and give a summary is just the importance of mobility. What is mobility, and how can people take advantage of this time to use that for injury prevention or performance enhancement?
Typically mobility for a lot of people is just going to help them feel a lot better, reduce a bit of that stiffness waking up in the morning. So, and it's like we expect, as we said before, we expect a bit of fatigue. That's the purpose of training, is going to fatigue you to then bounce back out and recover. But the mobility side of things is going to be there to, I guess, accelerate that. Like you wake up in the morning feeling stiff and sore, 5-10 minutes mobility. You might like to do some foam rolling, some trigger ball type stuff. If you want to do some stretching, there's a number of different ways you can do it. We do have some stuff with the mobility playbook that we've got, where we've got some routines that you can do that target hips, maybe through your torso, things like that as well, as some starting points. But all of it is designed to just essentially get you loose. You can use it as a warm-up. You can use it first thing in the morning. You can use it if you've been sitting at your home office all day, self-isolation, you're sitting at your desk all day, and then get up at lunchtime instead of going to get food first and then come and sit back down, do 5 minutes of mobility on the ground, keep yourself moving and loose, so your running session later in the day, your bike session later in the day is going to be a lot more effective. You're not having to spend that extra time going, the first 10 minutes of my session today was a real struggle because I just felt like my hips were really locked up, or I felt like I was getting a bit of a sore back because my hips are really tight from sitting in a chair, so I'm pushing through like this and compensating, it's getting really tight.
Sitting on a bike saddle all day long, that'll happen too.
Yeah, all of that. It's there to basically relieve as much sort of tension out of the body as we can, keep things moving all loose, but then also just from a general well-being perspective, it's a good way to just sort of relax and sort of zone out for a bit. So you get a good benefit of physical and psychological out of it. It's sort of the real purpose that most people are going to see the effect in.
Cool. So I think let's leave it there. Let's do a bit of a summary. So, but basically in summary, whether you've got equipment or you don't, we're just looking at those core movements. A lower body push and pull, upper body push and pull, a little bit of core, and that's essentially all you need to do. If you're a beginner, just focus on being controlled. Really think about the movement, get the movement done correctly. Don't worry about how hard it is or anything like that, or weight. Just get it done right. Somewhere around 8 to sort of 15 reps, 3-ish sets is about right. And then if you're more of an advanced athlete, again, do exactly the same thing, but just do it with intent to lift, right? Nice and controlled on the way down, explosive on the way up. Less is more when it comes to this. Don't try to do the same amount. Do less, but keep it really high quality, and it'll be really successful. And then from a mobility standpoint, really good for even just wellness, but also just it feels good when you can move your hips, when you're not feeling tight and all the rest. If you want some free mobility exercises to do, click the link that we're going to put in this bio down below. Nick's put together a mobility playbook, totally free. So go through those exercises. They are really, really good at increasing mobility, reducing tightness, and just overall, you don't hurt after it. There's videos in there to show you what exercise to do, but then also PDFs of exact sessions you want to follow if you want. Like I said, you can use them in your warm up before your session, before your bike, your run, your gym session, however you want to use them. But we got the information there, so you know exactly what to do, and it's pretty sort of easy to follow. So take advantage while you've got the time. Click the link, get onto that. There's also an option to have a strength program if you want it, just an at-home one. Totally up to you, but if you want to take advantage of this time and start to introduce yourself to some strength, or you can't get access to a gym, but you want to keep it going, feel free to check that out as well. Any questions, please let us know. We're keen to keep doing these podcasts. Hopefully you found them really useful so far. We want to keep being engaged and active throughout this time. And the more questions you ask us, the easier it is for us to create that content. So thanks for your time, and we'll speak to you again soon.